Welcome back to Let's Clone. My name is Stephen French, and this has been one of the hardest fucking videos to make. I made it a few times on my MacBook, and that is just too old, and the audio would go out of sync, and it just doesn't work. I then set up this PC again, resurrected it, got running better than probably ever before. Pretty happy about that. And I recorded it, and other than like the color correction, it's still kind of fucked. I think it's the best I've got it so far. But other than that, it was going well. And then I recorded the whole video, and the desktop recording was punched into the top left corner, so you couldn't see any of the code. So I had to do it again, and then that day I made it again, but I just took a quicker approach and realized afterwards that I had left the webcam in this mode covering the whole fucking screen, and you couldn't see anything behind me. So now I'm making this again, however many damn agains there are, but hopefully it comes through. So we're not going to go through all the code as line by line as I did in previous attempts. I'm just going to show you the code. We're going to work through it. I'm going to tell you what it does, and hopefully you can understand it. Ask me any questions you have in the comments. I'll try to clear things up. But this is getting ridiculous. Let's just make this bomb explode and then move on to the next fucking part of this tutorial. I'm going to go remember to bring myself down to the corner. Let's go. That is what I fucking forgot to do on the last try. Okay, first things first, we've got sprites. Player sprites I've added in. I should have a link in the description. We have a center that iterates through. It's just from that big sprite sheet that we were using before. But notice that these are at origin middle center, so 8, 8. All the other sprites that we're using, I think for the most part, we're setting them up in the corner. So we need to keep this in mind when we have to offset it while drawing the sprite. And we've got the middle portion. Just goes end to end, and we have the end cap portion. We don't need all 4 directions because we can just rotate these, especially given that we put that center orientation. So we have those. That's nothing particularly new. Come down into our blast. I don't remember entirely how we had this before, but just to look through it now, at the end of the animation, it's going to self-destroy. On the draw, instead of destroying self, which we wouldn't quite be able to do, I don't think, we're going to draw an extended sprite just to be sure, give it our current sprite index, which we will change on creation, image index, which will change at the animation speed, and then that offset for having it center origin. X and Y scale can be the same. Image angle, we are going to be updating that when we create it as well, and then color and opacity. The last part of this event, or this object, would be in the create event, just setting an image speed to 0.25. We're going to set the bomb speed to that as well, because that was a little too fast in the previous game. But now this is where most things are happening. We have in our create event for our bomb, we're going to set, again, the speed down to 0.25. I think it was at 0.5 before. Looked a little wacky. I'm setting this down to 60, so just after 2 seconds it'll blow up. If we want to change that later, we can. And we have 2 new variables, the power indicator for how far our bomb's going to expand, and a way to know if each side needs to keep expanding. We could get by ignoring this at first and just assume they can expand forever, or at least for the duration of their power. But if we hit a wall or a brick, then that will stop the expansion of the blast. So in order to pay attention to that, we're going to have 4 essentially booleans. We're going to have to the right, up, backwards view, right, up, left, and down, I believe. We're going to store a value of either 0 up into whatever the power is. So say we have the power being 4, it can be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. What we're going to use to our advantage is that 0 will read as false, 1, 2, 3, and 4 will read as true. So we're gonna use that. You'll see in a second. But we're just creating an array of size 4, and we're filling them all with our power. Come over into our alarm. This is, the bomb will destroy itself after it explodes. It initially creates that center blast. We already did that in the previous tutorial, which for me is now like 8 fucking tutorials ago. We have one loop going from 1 to our power. We're skipping 0 because we've already created that blast on the center point. So we need to check 4 different directions. I'm using 0 as right, up, left, and down. And we're going to check if we can keep expanding. This will, again, loop over for the duration of the power. So we're going to augment where we place that new bomb by the width of the sprite multiplied by whatever our current iteration is. That will happen inside of the script, but let's ignore that for now. Some of you will probably already know what a question operator is, but some may not, and we're just going to break that down a little bit. What this is essentially saying is we're going to ignore the equation part right now. We're just pretend that we're looking at just this. It's the same thing as saying if bomb array at 0 is equal to true. If that's true, then we would run script, and then else we would set that bomb array as 0 to be equal to false, so it never runs again. Although if it's false and it fails this, then we really don't have to do anything there, because if it's not running true, it's not doing anything. But when we structure it differently, we have to keep that in mind. So now think of this as, instead of returning either the script or returning an instance of false, we are using these as sets instead of like just blocks or block calls, I guess. Hopefully this can make sense. So right now I'm saying that the bomb to the right, we're just going to consider that the right expansion, is equal to the result of this. The result of this will either be based on the condition, which we are choosing for it to be the same thing. So we're going to say we're trying to figure out what this should be set as. If it's currently true, because of this question mark operator, we will run this code. If it's false, then we can ignore this. And it's essentially just saying that the bomb is still equal to false. Again, we wouldn't have to remind it. It already proved itself, but I don't think I'm allowed to just leave this blank. And that'll probably give me an error. I guess I could, yeah, maybe we could break there. I don't know, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna set it to false. But what we have to keep in mind is, since we are always trying to equate this to something else, or rather set this as a new variable, or update it, I guess, inside of this script, we need to return a value of either true or false, which instead of being 0, 1, it needs to be 0 or 1 through power. So hopefully that makes sense. We're just looking to the right. We're going to check this as many times as our power, looking up, left, and down, and then we can eventually check and set this to false if it needs to be. So let's go into the expand and see that. We don't have everything done yet. We don't have collisions. We just have the expansion working for right now. Now keep in mind, we've only updated the blast with the new sprites, and we're working on the bomb now, which the only real code has changed inside of our alarm, which currently runs for me at 2 seconds after spawn. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna create an instance of a blast. Since this script was called, we know that this particular orientation is true. So we don't have to do another check there. We can just create a blast and then figure out what to do with it from there. We are going to create that instance at, keep in mind here, we're passing the, oops, I guess you can read it up here. We're passing the delta x, delta y, so the shift that needs to be made, not including the position that we're starting from. So when we create the blast, we're going to give it the x, y as the starting positions. That's going to be where that center block is. And then we're going to shift it to the right or the left, however far we need. Over here, we've shifted it by sprite width times I on the x side. The sprite width and height are both 16. So you could hard code that in there, but I just chose to use them respectively. So on the first pass, this will be 16 pixels to the right, 32, yada yada. So we are setting this at the new position. We then need to update the sprite. Anything after, like the first blast is in the center, which we're covering that by setting the object sprite to the center. Everything else will be a middle column, this guy, unless it is the very last piece. But this blast could potentially be very long, so there's gonna be more cases where it's middle than it's a corner piece if your power is high enough. So we will then look and check if we are at the final position of our power. Then we're going to change that to the end cap. This is a little bit cheeky how it works. We know that the delta x, let's pretend that we're at the end of our loop here. So our power is 2, and we are currently at I equals 2, because here I less than or equals, it'll still run while I is equal to 2. So we pass in 16 times 2, so we get 32. And now here, if we're checking if our absolute value of our delta x, meaning we can ignore if it's left or right. So just if this is 32 and the sprite width multiplied by the bomb nut power, which would be our furthest position, is also 32, then we know we're at the end. We can run this check for the x and also for the y by using a logical OR. So if either of these ring true, then we know that we're at the end piece. There we can just set the sprite to point at the end segment. And then regardless, we're going to be rotating it based on like whatever direction it's facing. So for this last variable, the expand direction, in here, which you can see down, oops, you can see down at the bottom we have delta x, delta y, expand direction. I've given 0 for right, 1 for up, 2 for left, 3 for down. And if we just multiply that new number by 90, that gives us the exact angle that we need. Right, 0 times 90 is 0, and GameMaker counts going to the right as 0 and then going clockwise as how you increment across the degrees. And then the last thing I mentioned before, we need to make sure that we are paying attention to the fact that this is being assigned to whatever the result is. So since everything passed and we hit a bomb, we're going to return true. And it's going, or we set the blast, we're going to return true. This is where collision detection would come in. Although technically we could do collision detection up here, so we never have to make it if we don't have to make it, but whatever, we're eventually going to do that. This is how far we got several times over before I had to remake this a few more times, but let's compile and see where we are. Again, if anything's not working, it's a little bit tough to follow these like word by word, especially when you're not getting it presented to you word by word. So if anything's fucked up, send me the code, email it to me. I'll do my best to look through it. But let's clear ourselves a little path with our quick God mode. Yeah. And then come down to a nice empty space, plop a bomb. Look at that. If we come on into our bomb power, bring this up to a 5. Give ourselves that same little walkthrough. Now we're going to see that the blast will expand through everything because we haven't set up any of those conditions. But now we already have a blast that works and accommodates for the power. I'm just going to double check. Look at that. I'm still in the corner. The desktop covers the whole screen. The audio seems to be in sync with my mouth. We might actually finish this fucking tutorial. Cool. Now, simple things we need to know. How we are killing these things is rather simple. Let's get rid of those. Alright, so now if we come down into our environment and we look at our brick, we have created if position meeting mouse X, mouse Y, ID, then we're setting the speed. And it already knows to destroy at the end of its own animation cycle. So we just need to change this condition, which I'm actually going to leave it in there because you can enjoy it. So we're just going to do an OR. But if we do place meeting at XY with object bomb, oh, that's a 0. Object bomb. So if we touch a bomb, we're gonna set the speed. That actually is a little weird right now because right now if we're not touching, our speed is 0, and then when we do touch, we set it to 0.25, but then we keep setting it to 0.25 as long as we're still touching it. We're never setting back to 0, so I don't think I need to care about that too much. So now if we touch the bomb or the mouse, we die. Let's take the same thing real quick. Come down into that is for later. Our enemy, our object of our enemy, our step, and we should see the same, yep, debug script. So we're setting the is alive to false. It's a little bit different than what we did before. So instead of, whoop, here. So now we're just going to add the condition that if we touch with the bomb or if the position meeting, or if we touch with the mouse, we're just setting is alive to false. This one handles it a little bit differently because yeah, we already did all this code. But once it's no longer alive, then it'll go through the same process. So let's blow up a couple walls and a couple balloons with a couple bombs. And yeah. Alright, well, this is actually going to be kind of fun because we're going to be able to kill the balloon and the bomb. You son of a bitch. Why didn't that work? What? It is my blast that I'm encountering, right? Yeah, object blast. Oh. I'm retarded. That was pretty stupid. The bomb disappears right away. It only appears out under Bomberman. So we just need to change that to blast and then find our enemy and also tell him that blast is the thing to be worried about. Banging. I don't know if that should have actually killed that guy. Let's see if it kills him. Okay, yeah. So that's fine. I thought it was killing somebody off to the side. But look at that. We now have super bombs. Oh, that was fucked. I don't know if y'all saw that, but I saw that. Oh, no. That shit shouldn't have happened. Let's come down to our brick. Let's check that. Oh wait, I was only trying to fix it for the bricks. Okay, well, something silly with that. I guess there's a little bit of overlap going with on the left, so go position meeting for the brick, and position meeting. The difference between position and place meeting is when you call place meeting, you are looking at the entirety of the collision mask of the current object, moving it to where you're expecting the collision to be, and then checking that entire overlap. There we go. All right, this is what I was looking for. All right, so these are for place meeting. So you have this bird. You either have just a full collision mask for its sprite, or you have a precise pixel perfect collision mask where it's just around the pixels that are included. But either way, you take the entirety of the sprite mask, move it over, and compare it to the sprite mask you're comparing it to. If they're both pixel perfect, then obviously that wouldn't work, but it's the same thing. It's still projecting the expected place of the mask and then checking for overlaps. Place meeting, on the other hand, doesn't take the whole mask, it only takes the origin point. So say if this bird was origined in the middle center, it would ring false. But if its origin were in the top right, it would be true. So that's the difference between place and position. Place gives you a bigger area to overlap, so little things that I don't feel like fixing in code that are allowed to happen and cause errors, we can just ignore by using a smaller scope. I hope that made sense. I hope things make sense. So the last bits, we're just checking for the collisions. So let's go down into our script. So we have that script for expanding. I'm going to look back at the old code that I had. Let's take what we have for a second and comment this out. And then I'm going to put in the working code from previous efforts. Ignore this stuff for the moment. At the end, we're returning true, whereas previously we were returning the bomb power. I was taking advantage of the fact that it can scale, and I think it was silly to do that. So we do need to know bomb power so we can iterate it, but it doesn't matter if this is true or false. So or true or bomb power. So I'm going to keep it bomb power. I like it more. So we're setting that to true if we can. So if we get to the end of this block of code, it's true. In the start, what we did the first time, let me open these up a little bit bigger and get those a bit smaller. So we created the instance of the bomb and we put it at our expected position. So we aren't doing things the same entirely. We're making the blast down here, we're not doing it first. This is just how I chose to do it a fucking month ago when I first wrote it, and now I'm having a hard time looking back at it. I don't comment my shit enough. So similar, instead of creating an instance of the blast that we did here, we're going to check if there's an instance of the brick first. We do have a difference between bricks and walls, I do believe, in that the wall is the parent. So wall, parent, the brick is a child. Shares a parent with the bomb just so we can't walk through it again, but that doesn't matter. But we do want to check them separately, because if we just check for wall, it's going to ring true for both, and we got to change those differences between them. So if we hit a brick, we're checking for variable instance brick is at instance place of x plus delta x, y, but the same thing as like where we're going to put the blast, we're checking is that position first of brick. We've now stored it into this variable instance brick. We're checking if instance brick does not equal no one. That means that it does equal to someone, essentially. If true, we're setting that brick's image speed, which, as we just saw before, as to how to kill it with the blast, same thing. So actually, truth be told, we don't need to set the speed here since we're already setting it over there. I don't care enough at this point. But if we hit this brick, we're then setting that direction to false. So, oops, come on. To try to iterate through it quickly. Nope, bomb. That's a sprite. Here we fucking go. Oof. So we have checked if this is true. It ends up being true, so we ran the script. We run the script, and if it ends up hitting a block, whoop, why did you shrink? All right. If it ends up hitting a block, then we are setting it to false, and we're not going to spawn anymore. Since we've set it to false, we are cutting there, and we are backing out, and it's actually not going to create anything. It's not going to run the rest of the code. Return works just like a break in a switch statement. So, at least in this context. If we don't hit a brick, then we're going to check else if, and we're going to check if we're going to be hitting a wall in the same way. So essentially, we're doing the opposite. We're checking if we are not hitting a wall. So at this point we've cleared. All right, this position does not contain a brick. Now, if this position also does not contain a wall, then we are going to do what we did before up here, where we can create the blast. We can create it at our desired position, and then we can change its sprite index to middle, which here we can do here we change the sprite index to middle, so here we identified it as the end of the explosion. So after we've determined that it's in the middle, so here we'll just comment some of these. We will update class animation to the middle, and then we will identify the, the end of Explodey Boy. I forgot about that. We're doing the same check that we did before. We're setting that now to the end. And we're changing the image based on the expand direction. These will go away in a second, don't worry about that yet. Now, else, so if our first check here is an if this is true, we're getting out of this, we're running false. If this is true, we know there's not a block, then we're good, we're making the thing. If it's not true, that means we hit the wall. So it's kind of weird how we're running the collisions here. I know I did it in a backwards way, but that's programming. And then at the end, if we make it to the end, we're going to return true, essentially, but we're going to turn 2 if the power is still set to such. So let's come through and see if we can just get rid of those. That was probably the big error. And we don't have anything going on badly. Neat. So this is the code. Pause it here if you have to go through it line by line and compare. I'm sorry for jumbling the fuck out of this, but hey, this is where we are, and I think we're actually going to be able to upload something, so deal with it. Run this. Now our goal, desired behavior should be that the flame or expansion does not go through walls, and that it does destroy bricks, but also does not go through bricks. And bang, look at that. So we should not be able to kill that balloon. We still got that 5. We're not killing ourselves, but we don't need to yet. But like, what the hell? We got a good start. Good bit of Bomberman going. That's definitely where I'm going to stop this. Hopefully this time around I finally get to edit this video and get to publish this one out there. So I'm so sorry for the delay. Things have been all mixed up. I've been spending a lot of time and money on setting up my tattoo equipment. I'll do a bit of a studio tour sort of thing. I got some silly setups going on. I built most of my furniture out of cardboard. I've got silly things going on, but I just put a lot of time and money into getting this and my tattoo set up to be more productive, and I would like to spend a lot more time with this. So bit of a life update coming soon. The rest of Bomberman will be coming as well. We need to pretty much find out how to win the game, discover a door, open it, find the bonus key, things like that. It won't take too much longer. This game is pretty easy to make. This was just a hard particular tutorial to make for every other fucking reason possible. But we made it. We got it. I'm gonna get out of here. You can see me next time. The whole video. If you just I just recorded the whole thing for like almost a fucking hour. And the desktop recording was punched in the goddamn top left corner of the screen for the whole video. I've got to do it again. The whole video. Tonight. Not doing it now. Tonight. Try again tonight. The recordings work. Here we go again. Later on, same day. Look at that. Look at that. Now the blast should just go right through walls. Yeah. So we got stuff to do. But we're here. We're here. Dare I check? Oh, I can't see it at the same time. Damn. No. Oh, I did it. Look at this, look at this. You see how I'm out of the way? So you can see all the words? You see how I'm completely in the way? Like I would be for maybe an intro or an outro? Do you see the one mistake that was left for me to make, and I fucking made it, and now I have to do this again. Tune in tomorrow.